Hello and welcome to Queendom TV. Today I'm going to be making another controversial video for my channel, and this video is entitled Kris Broke Bruce. Now I'm talking about Kris Jenner and Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner, who are the parents of Kendall and Kylie Jenner, and who also Bruce, now Caitlyn, also co-parented their other children. Well, they co-parented all their children because they both had children beforehand. And the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I remember I made a video talking about Kris being one of the witches in Hollywood. So check that video out for a bit of background to see where I might be coming from with some of the claims I'm going to make in this video. But one thing I'd like to say is I remember watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and there was a period of time where I actually watched that show, and it was around the time of when, it wasn't at the very beginning, but it was kind of more the early mid time when they were just becoming really famous, and Kris was kind of going ham in terms of trying to push the popularity and fame of her family, and Bruce was kind of more focused on, like, let's just be more about the family, let's spend more family time, and Kris was more about the money. And I spoke in my previous video, the one where I spoke about Kris being one of the witches in Hollywood. I talked about how she has always, clearly over the years, has been very, very money focused. And so I think that's actually a way that they were very different. And I would actually be interested to understand further how they actually ended up together in the end, because looking at it, it doesn't really seem like it made any sense for them to actually be together, all in all. But anyway, what I wanted to say is that I feel like because of how Kris was, and because she's so focused on the money and she's so focused on the business, and that's how she is, and that generally, I know that this world that we live in, I know they throw these things out the window. I know we throw this, gender has been thrown out the window, but on this channel we acknowledge gender, and as just to say, as I will always say, whenever I'm expressing my opinions, it's never hurt against the people who don't agree with what I believe. It's never hateful. It's never I'm never giving hate speech. I'm giving my perspective, which I have the right to do freely, in the same way you have the right to live the way you're choosing to live. You do that, and I'm going to do that, and we're all going to respect each other, and we're all going to be fine. So I hope that that's going to be okay, and I'm not going to readdress this in the video, although I know there are going to be people who are going to just assume I'm being hateful just because I'm saying something that's not what other people are saying. But anyway, I feel like, generally, in a relationship sense, the way I believe God designed for things to be, and yes, I'm talking about God, is you have men are generally the providers, and provision comes in different forms. It's not just financial provision. There's emotional provision. There is, protection, which is a form of provision as well, I guess, in a sense. But men are more the provider. And again, when we talk about these kinds of subjects, it's the way I look at it is like, as parents, what are your specialisms? It doesn't mean you can't do the other things. It's what are you specialized to do? And when I say specialized, I mean on the DNA basis, I believe that God created us as men and women with certain things we're both better specialized to do. And when we walk in our specialisms as a team, the children get a very whole and wholesome experience. So I think men are specialized for, provision, protection, etc. And I feel like women are specialized, to be the nurturing ones, the ones who understand their children and what their children need to do, and cultivating their destinies and whatnot. I do think that second point that I just made about cultivating the destiny of children, Kris Jenner has done out of this world. Like, she has gone out of the way to try and cultivate a life for her children, whether it's exactly where they needed to go and what's best for them, and playing to all of their strengths, I don't know, because I don't know what their strengths are. I didn't see them growing up. And a lot of things that they do are just a lot of these newer school ideas of things that we do and ways that they make money in that family. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I feel like there was a complete role swap between who was then Bruce and Kris, because prior to all of this, he was an Olympic champion. I believe he competed in the decathlon. It was one of the athlons anyways, which for me, any athlete that's doing that is highly, highly, highly skilled. And highly skilled, and he was a very, very wholesome figure as far as I was concerned in Keeping Up with Kardashians. I thought he was a lovely dad. I thought it was good for him to be there to add that balance for the family and the grounding for the family to kind of remember where they came from. And I think that tension between him kind of assuming more of that role of what somebody like Kris should have more been doing, while Kris was focusing more on the financial, which again I think is more of that I feel he should more have been specializing in that. If that's what needed to be being done, then I feel like there was that tension. And I feel like over time, and I think this is what happens a lot, I think this is why we're finding a lot of men nowadays are slowly becoming more and more feminine, because you're finding a lot of women that come with this big masculine energy, and it's draining the masculine energy out of a lot of men out there. And so there ends up being this role swapping where you end up having masculine, feminine, and feminine. You have masculine women and feminine men. And that is where we are moving towards now, because so much of what women fighting for the rights and all of that, yeah. I believe obviously women should be able to be paid fairly, but at the end of the day, and this is why I said that I think women specializes more, and I use the term specialize, in the nurturing and cultivation of children aspect. One very simple reason: women have a womb. Everybody on this planet Earth right now, I think, has come from a woman, as Dave Chappelle mentioned. So I just don't understand why we are here debating on the roles of people and why there's such an issue with that. I think there's beauty in that. I think there's beauty in it being a man and a woman working together. But I do really feel that Kris ultimately broke Bruce, and now here we are at Caitlyn. I really do believe that. And the reason why I'm talking about this is not because I'm trying to just, talk about nothing for nothing, but it's because one of the interesting things for me about Caitlyn and all that's happened is how a lot of the things that have been said by Caitlyn have been very I don't know, she or he sounds very double-minded. There we go. It's like, and I remember even when the first interview came out, and I think it was done with Diane Sawyer, and when we first heard this, and I was shocked. It was a big shock to me. I never expected to see something like that. There was a lot of talk about, will Caitlyn be getting the surgery, to change, the genitalia and all of that? Will Caitlyn be going on these hormone changes and all of these things? And Caitlyn was not really into doing a lot of these things. It seemed a lot more of just having this outward appearance. And again, to me, it just seems a bit odd, because if you really feel like you're the wrong gender in the wrong body, right? If you really feel like you're the wrong gender in the wrong body, surely you would want to adjust everything to match up. And then again, it's not something that I struggle with, so I will acknowledge that in speaking about it. But sure, I would have thought that you would want to then be able to live that full experience, because Caitlyn till now still has a masculine voice. I don't know that Caitlyn has actually taken anything to change to like do all the voice changing stuff. And another thing that I wanted to mention also is that I wonder if Bruce, before he was Caitlyn, just thought he saw the belly of the beast, he saw how evil and demonic and disgusting and everything that the things that Kris was doing, and he maybe just realized the power of being a woman in this day and age, and how much more monetizable that is. And I'm wondering if that's actually what led to him choosing to be a woman, that he just thought, well, actually life was really hard before. I was trying to be this family man, wasn't really working out. Kris is stepping all over me, even though the Bible says that husbands should submit to their wives, wives should submit to their husbands, which people hate that phrase by the way. And I just want to address that even right now quickly, just to say that it says husbands submit to your wives submit to your husbands, and husbands love your wives like Christ loved the church, right? Christ died for the church, and Christ did everything for the church, and Christ prioritized the church above everything else. So God is essentially telling men to prioritize your woman, your marriage above everything else, and be prepared to die for her. That's the level of depth of love that you're supposed to have for her, which I think a lot of women, if that's what they were receiving in a relationship, would be happy. And I think a lot of women who, if they were receiving that relationship, would be also happy to submit to that man and allow him to be a form of leadership, because it's a beautiful thing to have a man, I believe, who is in leadership of a family, who is in control, who is the one who's going to be the protector, who's going to come up with the strategies of how to deal with certain issues that, if we're being honest, women, we don't want to deal with. as much as we might want to say, oh, we want women's rights, are we saying that we're going to switch the whole rules, and if there's a world war, all the women are going to war? Or are you guys still expecting all the men to go to war? See what I mean? So just to say that. So I think because they just disrupted that whole Kris and then Bruce disrupted the whole chain of how things are supposed to work. I think that's why there's just been a lot of destruction. I think Kris is is out of control, totally controlling monster that's out there, in the words of actually Bruce's mum, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check. Let me check. Yes, and she's a controlling monster in the words of Bruce's actual mother. And now Bruce, as a lot of men who are encountered with women like that, they become feminine generally over time, or just feminine in characteristics. They tend to be the ones who end up having to submit. Then they tend to be the ones, because we have different needs as men and women as well. And I think that the roles that we have, they play into the fact that we have different needs. I think for us as women, generally we actually need a lot less recognition from men for the things that we do, and a lot of that. Like, we like to be acknowledged, but we know that we're not going to be for a lot of it. And we're kind of a lot more comfortable with it. Whereas with the men, it doesn't work as simply with that, from a lot of what I've read, from a lot of what I've seen. So I do feel like there's just this big imbalance now. And now Kris is off running wild. I don't really trust her to just be doing whatever she's doing. I think I felt more comfortable when I felt that they had Bruce there as that kind of, you know, sense of what was going on. And obviously, even with what Caitlyn eventually came out with in that book, talking about everything, Kris then went and said that this was all lies anyway. Again, very controlling. Again, very problematic. Again, if you're really so supportive as an ex-wife, why couldn't you just say, you know, that's not how I remembered things or something? Just do one of those dodgy things. You know, when people say, that's not how I remembered it, but, you know, I respect your truth, or whatever that people say, right? And I kind of feel like, you know, again, it just goes to show, like, this masculine, feminine. Can you see why I say that it's a very masculine type of energy? I hope that I think you guys on my channel are gonna like understand where I'm coming from with that. But anyways, that's all I had to say. I feel like Kris broke Bruce, and Bruce now is just thriving and living off of, you know, the benefits of probably a lot of the tricks of the trade of being a woman that he saw going on in his own household. And also just realize that him fighting in the past, trying to be a man, was just maybe not fun anymore. And especially with how the world is going and how so much of social action is focusing on women, I think it's actually focusing on women way too much at this point. And I don't think women are actually prepared for the level of equality that we're asking for in a lot of ways. But yeah, I'd like to hear what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and how you felt about this, especially if you did see their kind of relationship prior to them divorcing, and then obviously Bruce becoming Caitlyn. Let me know your thoughts in general. Let me know your thoughts about Kris as well. I did a video about her, so check that out, talking about as one of the witches in Hollywood, and a lot of the stuff I talk about in here kind of adds to the theory as to why I believe that. And like I said, I gave a background in that video to some of her relationships. Other than that, thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe, of course, if I didn't say that already, and like the video. God bless you all, and I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.